Okay, noted.
Good morning. Hi. I might have another sip of this coffee. Good morning. Good morning. I am so exhausted. We had friends over yesterday and they we had a scheduled get together with my girlfriends from 2:30 to 6:30 and the last of them left at 10:30 last night. It was a fun day. Welcome. So today in the Divine Feminine series, we are moving into our next Divine Feminine. And it's somebody I really didn't know who comes kind of from the Welsh, not kind of, comes from Welsh, from Wales, a Welsh goddess, although, that goddess title really came much later. She really was kind of more of a sorceress. And the Romans, before the Romans came, everything was very much just obviously passed down verbally, right? There wasn't any kind of really written, and there's no like temples of worship to her or spaces of worship to her. And so I just found it very interesting. And then I'm like, how do I say her name?
Ceridwen.
Yeah, spelled Cerd, but it's like the C is a hard K. It's not an S sound.
Mhm.
And so I was like, how do I don't even know how to say her name. And then she has children. And
Mhm.
there's all this mysticism about this and fantastical stories. And as things are orally passed down, it could be slightly wildly embellished. Who knows? But at the end of the day, there's going to be a great message, I think, to take from this. And I was like, oh, I kind of am liking hearing this story. So, Cassandra, I'm going to pass to you to give us kind of the history lesson and what you learned and know about her, because I knew nothing, knew nothing. And then even was it yesterday or Friday? I was like, who are we talking about tomorrow? Like, who are we going to be speaking on? I don't remember. So go ahead, Cassandra, take it away.
So we're going into this with fresh perspectives, is what I'm hearing, and
Very.
a new insight. And honestly, she was kind of on the back burner of people I had heard of too, and it was mostly because of this goddess oracle deck that we have been using, right? And so I pulled. What I found interesting is that I pulled cards for myself a couple of weeks ago, and I had this is Caradwen, the card that we have for her stirring her cauldron of inspiration with the moon phases behind her, but they're different phases of her own face. And so she's kind of seen as the crone character in this portrayal and in other portrayals later on and in the beginning of the story. So she is this mother figure, seen as a noble woman in some stories, and then other stories she's just a witch. So it could be one, it could be the other. But basically, she has two children, and of course, we're not going to ruin the names by attempting to say them. But Morfran was her son, who was very ugly. Her daughter was fair, beautiful, and could really face the world without any problems. But her son, she was so worried for. She decided to create a potion of inspiration, a potion of wisdom, which kind of goes along with our story of Adam and Eve and the fruit of knowledge. This was the potion of knowledge that was intended for her son to be able to face the world with brilliance and wisdom and poetry and everything that he needed since he didn't have the physical form to help him face the world. So with Morfran, she brews this potion out of things that she's gathered. Certain things bloomed during certain planetary movements. I mean, it took a while for this potion to brew, a year and a day,
A
which was
year and a day.
a year and a day. And she was gathering during the potion making. So she had servants that helped her. She had one older blind man that was in charge of stirring, and then a younger man who who was, oh gosh, his name, it's also in there. His he basically was in charge of gathering all of the sticks and bringing the sticks to them. So in this year and a day, she is still creating this potion. They have two jobs, but the old man decides, well, he doesn't decide, he falls asleep. He doesn't mean to, he just does. And the younger man is Guion Bach, is his name, Guion Bach. He has to gather the sticks and stir, but he can't do all at one time. So the potion starts boiling over. So he's trying to control the potion while Caradwen's out getting more herbs for the last bit of this potion. And three drops like splatter onto his hand. And as we all do when we get burned, puts it to his mouth. And these three drops, he ingests them and he gains all of the knowledge, poetry, wisdom, everything that the potion had intended for Morshran, he got within himself. So he was able to see all, he was able to see Ceridwen out in the forest, who also came to the realization that her potion had just been ruined because the rest of it turned to poison. So he immediately he runs away and he turns into a hare in order to escape her. She turns into a hound in order to chase him. I think the next he turns into a fish and she turns into an otter to keep chasing him. And then he turns into a bird to try to fly away. And then she turns into a hawk to catch him a bit faster. And finally, he decides that he sees that they're sowing wheat in the fields. And he says, okay, if I turn into a seed and grow into wheat, then she'll never be able to find me. So he turns into a grain of wheat so that he can be sown into the wheat fields. And Ceridwen turns into a hen who then begins to eat all of the seeds, all of the wheat, and eventually ingests him. So then he goes through her belly and she finds out that she's pregnant. And instead of like originally she wanted to get rid of the child because she didn't want to carry this being that had angered her so, that had taken her potion away, that had taken everything away from her son that she had painstakingly brewed for him. And so she had planned to get rid of this child that became pregnant in her belly after she ingested the seed. But when the baby was born, it was the most beautiful baby. She could not take her eyes off of him. She could not kill him. So she puts him in a basket that she weaves of skin and other things from the earth, which is also kind of gross, but it's kind of more of a dark, this crone figure that we've got, right? That she creates things out of things that we often find kind of gross. So she sends him off into the sea. She sends him down the river and into the sea. And a prince finds this basket. The prince takes this child in. The child was already about 3 years old by the time he was able to go in front of the kingdom, pretty much in front of the king. And he speaks for himself and says that he's going to be their bard. And from that horrendous story, this beautiful bard is born, and he became one of the most famous bards in Welsh history. So this story is of transformation, but also violent transformation. It's one where we kind of see where someone takes something that might not have been meant for them and something terrible happens because of it. But that transformation turns into someone beautiful, someone that, I mean, there's stories that surround this poet, this bard, for centuries. So the story is that something is created that the rest of the world gets to experience for a really long time. So something beautiful comes out of something violent and destructive. So the story is, yes, death and rebirth, but the death that we don't often want, that we don't often, I mean, he definitely didn't want to be ingested. He definitely didn't want to die after just stirring the pot when he was trying to, take up the job from someone else. But it ended up being something absolutely gorgeous and something beautiful that was created from this terrible story. So when we look at our own transformation in comparison to what Ceridwen brings, I mean, Ceridwen is the bringer of this violent and terrible transformation, and no one's asking for it, but it's there. And what she creates on the end is something grandiose and beautiful that we often find comes from our own violent transformations, the ones that we don't ask for, the ones that we have to face without being prepared. So the story kind of gives us a little bit of hope that even though something looks terrible and ugly, that there's really great things on the other side. What did you gather from it, Debbie?
Well, I thought there's so many interesting aspects to this story. And first of all, that her name, if you break it down into the two words of Carid and then Gwen, is really meaning this beautiful poetry, right? And I mean, yeah, blessed poetry. And then her cauldron is very well um, in her storyline, and it is even having a special name standing for poetry. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of parallels to other stories, right? Just like the flood story exists in many different forms in many different places and different belief systems,
Mm-hmm.
even those that predated, the Bible, it's I think of how Moses was put in a basket and sent down the river, right? And then is growing up in the Pharaoh's home. And
Mhm.
here he's put out into the waters and collected by the prince, and the very similarities of these stories, right? And again, these are orally passed down stories, and but the shape shifting part, right? And shape shifting into different creatures, and you know, she had tended to this cauldron for
Mhm.
over a year and a day,
Mhm.
waiting for it to be just right to try to bestow some great wisdom on her son. I also think of parallel stories that I was taught in my faith of growing up in Christianity is when um, was it was it Esau and Jacob, and one was going to get the blessing, but the other one came and he put skins on him to
Yes.
to try to because his father was going blind and
Yes.
tried to, and he took his brother's blessing.
He tried. So he tricked to get his blessing.
He
Yeah.
did. Now, this story,
Uh,
this younger man didn't trick anybody. It
mhm.
happened, but
It
this
was.
taking of another's blessing and
Yes.
this taking. So these are like thematic stories of that are passed down because these thematic stories are interesting and are repeated in different cultures and groups everywhere, right? So I thought that was very interesting. I was just thinking of all these different parallels to things that I had grown up in, stories I had heard. And then I was like, okay, so we have this woman. She was a sorcerer or whatever she was, this mother, and wanting to do good for her children. So, like, what are the core pieces of her that I can relate to?
Mm.
And I think you want the best for your children and you want to care for them and you're very protective of them. And so she has these different facets to her of loving her child and children deeply. And even this child she birthed that she thought, I'm going to discard of this baby after I have this
Right.
baby. I'm going to just this baby isn't going to live. And then saying, "Oh no, I can't do that." And I'm going to and he went on to be this great poet and this great, historical figure. So there's the shape shifting. There's what you brought up of like sometimes out of tragedy, great things come, which, that people will say the silver lining. And I think for me, there's so many of those pieces that I'm like, I can take a message from this. When things go awry, how do I handle myself? How do I move forward? How do I adapt?
Mhm.
And we can be very adaptable or we can be very resistant. And oftentimes, if we're resistant, things get even more difficult for us. But she's this shape-shifting person. So, you know, she was never really she became a triple goddess when somebody wrote about her in the 1900s. But
Which is
before,
different.
yeah. So it's like even she shape-shifted through his story in
Yeah.
time. Like there was a time in the ninth century that she was being talked about, and then the 12th century, her
Mhm.
story changed a little. Here we are in the 20th century, in whatever 1948, whatever that story came out of her. She was written about, and she became a triple goddess, right?
Mhm.
So it's like even her story has shaped and changed over
Yep.
time. But I think about what is the recipe for my life. And she had this recipe that she thought was going to be the end all to help her son to have this wisdom, to have this knowledge, to make up for his lack of good looks, you know. And what is the recipe that I'm working on, not just for a child of mine, but what am I trying to create?
Yeah.
What am I trying to build upon for myself? And thank God I don't have to cook anything that's going to take a year and a day and tend to a fire. Holy, 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 holy moly. But yet, what am I trying to put together for myself in my own life? What is the recipe of my life? I talk about this, the story of the cake. If I take, and I've done this many times, and so I'm sorry if you're hearing it for the hundredth time, if you've followed me along anytime in the last 4 years you've heard this. But you take a recipe, and I have this beautiful recipe for this beautiful butter cake, and I take the butter cake recipe and I make the butter cake, and I'm like, I love the butter cake. And every day I'm making the same butter cake. And then one day I wake up and I'm like, I want chocolate cake. But I gather all my same ingredients from my recipe that I have. I should not be surprised when I open the oven and there's the butter cake because I'm using the same recipe. I cannot just say I want something different and continue to do the same thing. I'm
Hmm.
going to get the same results.
Hmm.
So I have to change the ingredients in my recipe to get something different. And so there's that as well. Like, how am I cultivating and how am I adapting and how am I shape shifting in my own life? And I cannot be rigid and just be like, if I stuck with the belief systems I was raised in, I would
Hmm.
not be the person I am today.
Yes.
Not at all. Right. And so you learn and grow and you evolve over time and you shapeshift and you change and you learn and you grow and you adapt. And so there's a lot of being adaptive, being able to change and move and flow and learn and grow. Um, and then I think about her two children, right? This very beautiful, fair daughter and this not so good-looking son. And it's this dichotomy, right? Of light and dark, of fair and not so pretty, and this like, sweet looking thing and this kind of not so good to look at person.
Hmm.
And so when we have things that to us that we are throwing into categories and labeling, like there's this piece that I feel is what judgments are we putting on? Like,
Hmm.
what value, like, if your value is only on how somebody looks, you could have some really good looking friends who have some really terrible values, right? And even today, my card of the day, which I don't have here near me, the card of the day was I am beautiful. And
Hmm.
I was thinking of this story and how she worked so hard to give her son some great wisdom and knowledge because she thought it would make up for his lack of looks. But I have met people who are just maybe to the world gorgeous, considered a beauty, and they are cold-hearted, they are unkind, they are rude, and to me, I don't care what outer beauty they possess. That inner ugliness is going to override it. And likewise, I have people who, nobody's going to maybe say they're the most beautiful people in the world or, you should be a model or whatever the world thinks is beautiful. But they are the most beautiful people I know because they are kind, because they have this beautiful soul and light about them. And that is more beautiful than the physical look. So I
Pretty is
think
as pretty
about,
does.
yeah, so I really think about that. So, um, her whole year and a half stirring the cauldron thing makes me also think about change takes time.
Yes, it was a symbolism for the seasons having to go completely through all four seasons in
For
order
her to
to
collect and
survive.
do, yes, for her to work through all the seasons to get to this formula of what she
Yes.
was creating. And change takes time.
Hmm.
And I think we live in this world today, at least, and I believe in for sure in our Western world, where we want a quick fix. Everything
Hmm.
is quick, everything is immediate. Um, so for me, growing up, if I had to do research, I did not have Google. I had to like go to the library, find a book or periodical, and go find it and read it to get the information I needed.
And in the meantime, you gathered a bunch of information you didn't need because you had to read through everything else in order to find the one thing that you did need. So you
Right.
so you were exposed to so many other things that you had to sift through in your brain to get
Yes.
the right one.
And
So
now, and now, like one of our very beloved baseball players who played for the Angels passed away. And what's the first thing I did? My husband and I were like, how old is he? I was like, is he as old as I am? And I was like, well, his daughter went to high school with our son, but I think our son was older than her. And so then so what did I do? I immediately asked my ALEXA, how old was he? And she gave me the answer. That would never, I would have to wait till the next day and the newspaper story would come out, right?
which
The news would be delayed a day. He would
then you're
pass
forced to pause.
and then I would have to, hopefully the newspaper is going to give me the details. I had to get my morning newspaper to know what was going on. That was the way we learned things. And so everything is like such a quick fix. And even like in advertisements, everything is like, I'm going to tell you how you can lose 40 pounds in 10
Yeah.
days, or I don't, everything is like quick and immediate, and we're going to help you get this. And you don't, and even shopping, we used to have to get in the car, drive to the store, pick out the clothes. If they didn't have it, you didn't get it.
Hmm.
And now it's like I can order something right now, and probably still get it today where I live. There are some things, and I can order my groceries and they'll deliver them in 2 hours. Unheard of. You had to get in the car, do the shopping, load all the groceries in your car.
And think about
Everything is this
it,
immediacy.
about what you wanted on the way. Like you had to
Yeah,
take a moment to pause and think about everything on the way home.
right. And you were limited to what was available where you
Hmm.
were,
Hmm.
right? And now, I mean, I can get anything from anywhere, right? My granddaughter absolutely loves the movie Wicked, and she is obsessed with Fiero. And we always joke with her, I'm all my Fiero, and she's like, my Fiero. And then my son is like, my Fiero. And she's like, no, my Fiero. So they had these little stuffed dolls of Glenda and Alphabet and Fiero. And it's the only, like, there's a Fiero Barbie, but she's 2 years old. And it's not appropriate. So I go and I find it on eBay. It's in Thailand. I ordered that from Thailand. Was it
Which we could not
Thailand?
have thought
I
of.
think it was Thailand. And it came. It came to my, like, within a week, I had it here, right? And before that was not ever a thing.
We
So
get
we
what we
have
want
this, right?
immediately.
So we have this great immediacy of like what is available to us. And, I think for the generation I grew up in and the generations before me, we never had that immediacy. And yet I think also our attention spans are getting lost because everything is like the quick dopamine hit, and social media knows this. And they set your algorithms to be like, we're going to give you a couple of things you like, and then we're going to give you something really like horrid that's going to like give you emotions and feelings, and then we're going to throw an ad in when we got
Hmm.
you all hooked, and then we're going to move on to the next dopamine hit. And they have this whole algorithm of like give you three and then one and then this one and then an ad and then this and then an ad, and it's wild, and
They
it's
have.
all meant, yeah, and nothing is like long term, right? um and so I think this whole year and needing all the seasons to create this potion she was working on,
Mhm.
change takes time.
Yes.
And for me, uh, it's a lesson that I can take. Like I can't expect everything to change in a minute. And I do tell this, I did a workshop yesterday, and I tell the people in the workshop, this is the deal. You are not going to come to this one talk I'm going to give, and then you're going to be perfect at this. You're not going to hear, and you're going to hear some things that are going to like really click for you, but until you put it into practice, and you've got to put it into practice like at least the next 30 days to start a habit. But
Yes.
to really, it takes you like 28 to 30 days to form a habit, but then it takes long-term repetition before it becomes supernatural to you, like you just do it in your everyday life.
Right. That must
And
it takes time to develop.
right. And you're not going to go to one TED Talk and be changed forever. I mean, you might have some really good inspiration,
Hmm.
but if you don't apply it to your life, great, you got inspired for a day. Will you remember that inspiration next week? You may not, right? You may not have that inspiration. So it's putting things into action and taking the time to know that change is going to come with time. So that transformation takes time was big. Um, Love can alchemize anger.
Oof. Yes. Yes.
Love can alchemize anger. Now, I'm going to a play this afternoon with my mom. And my girlfriend yesterday said, "Why are you being so nice to your mom?" And I said, "I'm going to a play. We're going to sit together and watch a show. We'll have to talk a little bit before and a little bit during. And we could spend some time together that, you know, I'm giving her some time and I'm showing her that she has some value, but I hold very strict boundaries with her. I don't acquiesce into what she wants me to do in regards to a relationship with my sister. And my mom really wanted us all to come together and have a big family get together for Easter. And I was like, not interested, not doing it, right? So I, her, she needs, she needs a little bit of love. She does. She really does. Her mother didn't give her that love. And she just repeated that down to me, right? And her
Mhm.
mother was not kind to her, loving to her, any of those things. So I can do small acts of kindness with her and have small amounts of time with her. And we're all going to a baseball game for my husband's birthday next week. We're going to celebrate. And they're like, "You invited your mom too?" And I said, she loves baseball. We're going to sit and watch a game. And she's not even going to want to sit by me. She's going to want to sit by my granddaughter, right? And I said, it's going to be fine. But I can include her and still be kind to her and be loving towards her in some ways, but still hold my boundaries and
Yes.
still not allow her to treat me in maybe an unkind way or say an unkind thing. And I see her wounds and I see where she's perpetuated that pain in some ways and passed it down. But I wasn't a perfect mom either. There were times my mom's words came out of my mouth and I was horrified, right?
Hmm.
But there's this piece of you sending out love and kindness without being a doormat, if that makes sense. I always
Yes.
hated this conversation of turn the other cheek. Like, somebody punches you here, turn the other cheek and let him have another swing at you.
Yeah.
I'm not a doormat. I can be loving towards her and because she wasn't the most awful mother. There was good moments. I've had good moments with her over the last 3 or 4 years. We've traveled together and I've really enjoyed her the last few years. Really enjoyed her. But at the same time, I don't have to give in or be a doormat and and those pieces. So this is where I come and I could be angry and I could be bitter for things that she said and done in the past. And I am choosing kindness and love. And if she is unkind to me or says something disparaging, I can speak up for myself and say, that's not kind, and I am no longer in this conversation, and I can end that conversation, right?
Hmm.
And so I'm not going to sit in the anger and the pain and like drink the poison of
Hmm.
that behavior. I could become bitter, I could be resentful. And what good does that do me? Doesn't do me any good. But I also don't have to like show up and beg her for validation, for love back. I don't seek that from her. I did for many, many, many years. And
You
I
changed it.
know, right. And I know my value and worth outside of her opinion. And her opinion is I'm not a very good Christian. And great. That's not what I'm aspiring to be. So fantastic. And so she comes in with these judgments, but that's based on her system of belief and what she thinks. And I did say to her the other day, I said, if I am such an awful person, why would you want to spend any amount of time with me?
Mm.
I said, why? And I said, and why would you want to travel with me?
Yeah.
Like, if you really enjoy, if you don't enjoy time with me, if I'm this awful person, then go travel with your other daughter if she's so great and you're getting along so well with her. Maybe you should have an opportunity to travel with her now.
Mm.
And I think she's always shocked that I'm not here to disparage her having a relationship with her, but it doesn't mean I have to have a relationship with her.
Yes.
So this over and over this overlying sense of love can alchemize anger. I'm not going to sit in anger, and I actually can step into love for myself, knowing my worth and my value and not being unbothered. Now,
Hmm.
that doesn't mean I'm totally unbothered all the time because sometimes she says things and I'm just like, are you kidding me? And then in that moment, I'm just like a little hot-headed for a second, but then I stay pretty calm. My friends are really shocked. They're like, you're so calm about all of this. But it wasn't something that happened overnight.
It's
And
practice.
I think about how her anger was towards the child
Yes.
who she was so angry and she's like, I'm going to birth this child and then this child's life is over.
Hmm.
But yet she led with love and then was like, I'm gonna, this child, I love this child. And I'm yeah, right. And and so I think that there's a message in there that we can alchemize anger into love with love.
And that we experience anger, and it's okay to experience that anger when
It
it's not
is. It
pride.
is okay to be angry when you spend a year mixing a
Yeah,
potion.
yeah, it's
You're
okay to
like,
do
I
that.
just it's all gone and now it's poison. Like,
Right.
you're
But then,
gonna be angry.
so then it
I'm
becomes about,
angry if I
yeah,
spent 20 minutes cooking up something and I put a
yeah.
wrong ingredient in it.
So it's what we
Anyway,
we do with that. It's like you said, how we alchemize that energy, because anger is energy, right? It's something
it
that we
is.
use and direct somewhere else. And at first, she directed it into transforming, and she was changing and morphing with what she needed to in that moment to get the job done. So it's like
Right.
that adaptability. She used that anger to adapt, but then there was nothing left for it except for love. So that's a great story to to go along with it. And
Right. And you you cannot control everything that's happening around you,
yes,
right? But you can choose how you respond.
yes.
You can choose how you respond to the circumstances.
And if we don't like the way we've responded in the past, then we can choose a different way to respond
Right.
in the next. So that's part of that transformation too. We
Absolutely.
like your recipe, we can try a different ingredient, we can try different things so that we can morph into something else and transform into something else. And like I think I had mentioned that butterfly, that her cauldron, her inspiration of cauldron inspiration was reminding me of the butterfly being morphed in the cocoon. Like we can mold and melt into something else and then come out with completely different looks and a completely different perspective on the world.
And her potion didn't end up being as she intended it to
Right.
be, but yet she birthed the greatest poet in all of Wales.
Elysian, I think is what his name was. I
Yeah.
before,
I
but
mean, the greatest
a real
poet in all of Wales, she birthed. And so she had a plan. It didn't turn out the way she thought, but it still created this beautiful poet who became just a legend,
And didn't
right?
she end up getting what she wanted? She wanted a son that was beautiful, that had all the knowledge, that had the wisdom, that would carry on. And it may not have looked the way that she wanted it to, but in the end, she did get the thing that she desired. So it was a completely different process than what she intended. So it was,
Right? But she did get what she wanted in the
yeah.
end, which is, not how she intended. Um, we carry this creativity within us.
Hmm.
And whether you think you're not creative, you truly are. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this cauldron, right? Although you can be very creative in how you cook. I'm telling you, Sunshine posts these beautiful meals, and I just want to like have a seat at her table. Um, and then I look at Britt with her garden and the beauty that she creates and all those things. And I don't know, she's sawing
Doing
a
some
wood right now,
PVC.
she's
Looks
making
like,
something right now. Go cutting up pipe. She's cutting up pipe.
yeah, PVC.
Um, and I think, Maddie with music, right? And Maddie, with prolifically being a teacher to so many students who taught them music, whose music was carried on and their talents carrying on. Um, and I think also of like all the different choirs that she accompanied over all the years, like everybody has things that are their creativity that they are creative with. And it doesn't, I think we get so stuck like when you hear the word creative, I have to be an artist, a painter, um, whatever, but you can create in so many ways. Like there's so many ways to be creative in how you express yourself and how, you could be a writer, but you could also be a gardener. You can also
Design
be
your home if you want it to be. You can
right, whatever you want it to be. So just know that your life force is uniquely you, and you get to come out with your story, who you are, your creative side. And the message is, I think, connect to that. Connect that you have that within you.
Mhm.
And, I may not be birthing the greatest poet in all of the land, but my son is kind of funny. He's more of a comedian than a poet. But understand that each of us brings something to the table, and
Mhm.
each of us has value and worth and creativity. And we talked about like her fierceness, but also her surrender, right? And like her her wanting and anger, and it's okay to have a moment of anger, and then surrendering into what you have. And life is all about experiencing things. And you can have a lesson and you can have a blessing, and those can be the same things. You can learn from it and you can fight through it, and then you can be blessed by it. And you were like, I didn't see that blessing coming out of this lesson I was learning. And I always say I learned so much more from my lessons, from the obstacles or the difficult times and the things I overcame than I did about any of my accomplishments, right? And sometimes doing a project like Britt's doing right now is putting something together and you're building and doing it and it doesn't work the first time and then you've got to rethink it and retry it, right?
Success
And
is on thousands of failures sometimes.
Britt's going to say something.
We,
Speaking of year and a day, this is a project to bring back the poplars along the driveway that my husband had growing up. And I'm planting 38 poplars along the driveway. And
awesome.
these will go into the ground to be at root level. We're going to water them so that the water goes down into the ground so that the poplars go and find. But he's been growing these poplars for 5 years. And they're now, we have enough to put in the ground at the same time. So they all take off and they're the same height. But
Awesome.
it's taken a long time to bring that back. So that's what I'm
Wow.
working on.
It does take time.
Very fitting for this.
Very fitting. Very fitting. I'm excited to see it. And because you want them all growing the same along that driveway,
It's going to be that Tuscan look
Yes.
with the poplars just all. And then in the front, we have lilacs. I just planted 168 lilacs this year along the dirt road.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
we have now a buffer between that. We oil the road, but it doesn't do any difference. There's dust in the house like crazy. So if we grow those up, not only will that be a bird sanctuary and
Hmm.
smell amazing, it'll also cut us off from the rest of the world.
I love it.
Sanctuary, more sanctuary. You're creating.
Absolutely.
So I think there's so many great messages we get from all of this. And I think centrally, a great question is, you know, where do I take inspiration from this story?
Hmm.
Like what do I take from this to move forward? And I think we've hit all the points, right? Love, alchemizing anger, that change in adapting and moving through life is just part of life.
And that.
And
Hmm.
and change takes time. And so, even her story has adapted over time. She was not like some goddess worship, but then later became a goddess, right?
And that's one thing I kind of wanted to touch on too, is like in comparison to the other divine feminine figures that we've done, her story morphed in a totally different way. She started off as a noble woman slash maybe witch sorceress, and then was revered as a goddess. Whereas the other ones that we've discussed, Sophia, Deborah, I mean, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, even some like even Bridget, these were kind of softened over time. But whereas Ceridwen,
Hers got elevated.
hers was elevated. Her fierceness was elevated. And then the one thing that I kind of took from it was that from death, life can come. So even parts of us that we struggle to get rid of, like some of the stuff that I struggled with past my mom's past, my family's past, my Christian past, those things that maybe I don't want to carry on into the rest of my life. it's okay for them to die so that something more beautiful can come about. And I do want to read her little poem from this goddess oracle deck.
Yes, please.
The death and rebirth. I give you life, I give you death. It is all one. You travel the spiral path, the eternal path that is existence, ever becoming, ever growing, ever changing. Nothing dies that is not reborn. Nothing is born that does not die. When you come to me, I welcome you home, and then I take you into my room, my cauldron of transformation, where you are stirred and sifted, blended and boiled, melted and mashed, reconstructed, then recycled. You always come back. You always go forth renewed. Death and rebirth, but are points of transition along the eternal path. And so to me, it's also, yes, the transition may take time, but it's okay if we let some stuff go in the process too. So that's what I gathered from Ceridwen. I thought she was a really interesting figure with her crone-like look, but at the same time, that wisdom, that knowledge, that beauty that comes from it, it's so impressive to me. So
I love it.
I was a fan of her. I was
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm a Ceridwen fan now.
At first, I'm reading her story and I was like, what is happening in the story?
It was kind of grotesque, but sometimes life can be grotesque. There are parts of life that we don't like, that we don't enjoy, but some really great things can come from it.
I love it. Thank you all for being here for this great discussion. And can you randomly pick us a card for our next Divine
Yep,
Feminine, please?
got it
Because
ready.
I'm loving meeting some of these characters that really aren't on my radar at all.
And oh, the story that I didn't finish earlier, when I pulled cards for myself the other week, like I said, Ceridwen was at the top, and I literally looked at it and I said, I'll come back to you. And so I put her in the pile and I shuffled just the way I just did just now, and I shuffled, and then I pulled Ceridwen again. Like sometimes you just can't make it up. Oh, and this one we can do nut. N-U-T, nut. It's so hard
Oh, yes.
for me. Oh, it's not. There we go. It's just taking a moment to kind of focus. But nut is for mystery. An
And
Egyptian.
isn't she depicted like the whole, like covering over the whole,
Yes. So that is actually a body
right?
over the world too.
Yes. And so she's like the whole galaxy covering over. She's often depicted blue going
Mhm.
over. Yeah. Oh, she's gonna be good. That's a good one. I'm excited.
Mystery. I love this.
I love it. All
Oh,
right. Well, we'll see you all next month when we talk about Nut. It's going to be great. Thank you all for being here.
thank
Thank
you
you for
so much.
joining
Debbie,
us.
Debbie, are you
Yeah.
still going to do Wednesday? I know you said you were going to be gone, so I wasn't sure.
This Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not
Oh,
leaving till a week from today.
oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
I will. I'll be there Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Great days on purpose. Mwah.
Bye.